Welcome into Media Watch, the only sports show that covers sports media as much as we cover sports. Because gosh darn it, this stuff matters. I'm your host, AJ Fellman, as always, and today we're looking at the role of women in sports media and the evolution of that over time. Now, back in the day, there were simply just no women at all in sports media. It was a guys' club in the press box. However, that all started to change in the 1970s, specifically the 1977 World Series featuring the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, there was a big case at the time. Melissa Ludke was denied access into the New York Yankees locker room covering the team for Sports Illustrated. She filed a lawsuit against Major League Baseball, and two of our reporters got the chance to interview her and tell her story. They file this report.
I was made the second of two baseball reporters, and so I had a pass that got me into ballparks, so I thought, well, I'm going to go up and learn how to do this. The fact that I was up at the ballpark and doing the kind of work that would have put me in a place where I would have gained the trust of teams to have access to locker rooms. In fact, the Yankees had given me a pass to their locker room before the end of the 1977 World Series, is an indication of how much effort and time I put into to learning that job. So I do think that it's somewhat related to the idea that I was just determined that if I had these opportunities, I was going to take them. So that put me in a place where what happened in 1977 happened, and then the lawsuit came out of that. It was more difficult, sort of sometimes in a way, up at the baseball stadium, because those weren't really my colleagues. They were just other people reporting on baseball, and not all of them were happy to have me there as a woman. It wasn't against me. It was just the fact that they didn't like the idea that a woman had shown up, and certainly probably didn't like the idea that I was bringing a case that would certainly, open the gates to more women coming into it. So, I was really, I think, thought of as an invader who wasn't really welcomed. The older baseball writers never really warmed up. They just didn't want me or any other woman to come into their zone. Yeah. One thing that's important, I think, is to understand history and to see that there is an historic record here of pushback by men, of women wanting to kind of come into what's traditionally a male space. So it is not about what's happening in the locker room. This is about, again, each step of the way for women coming into sports writing has had barriers put up, stop signs, harassment, sort of abuse, pushback. Women didn't used to be able to eat with the male sports writers, before games. None of this has anything to do with privacy issues or nudity. I mean, I don't know that sports writers eat in the nude when they are eating their lunch. So all of this hogwash that this is about, privacy of players or the fear that the players are going to be seen in some naked way, that is not. It's a larger issue that's going on about, not being willing to see that women have the same capabilities, the same passions, and the same and have by law the same access to do the jobs that they're doing.
Welcome back to the show. Now, we've taken a look at women in sports journalism in the past. However, if you think that there are no struggles of women in sports journalism, you are clearly mistaken. And as we're about to see, we spoke with a multitude of women in sports journalism to hear what they think about the field right now and where they think their role in the field will be in the future.
I always kind of, had a passion for sports, and I knew I wanted to do journalism, broadcast journalism, since like 6th grade.
We had a class of 17 people, and I was one of 2 girls. You know what I mean? I was one of 2 females. So it was just different.
I signed up for the college paper, and they were talking about different beats and departments, and I was like, covering sports sounds way more fun than going to student government meetings, and so that was kind of how I got steered into sports. Just to begin with, it was kind of on a whim.
When I was in management at newspapers, I was the only female editor, so for sports.
I always laugh when, I'm on the sideline of a high school football game on Friday night and it's me and 6 other guys and they're all filming and it's just like, all right, how's it going, guys? What's up? There's times where I get nervous and I'm like, okay, wait, like, why am I nervous, being the only girl here, no one's gonna question me, and if they do, like, I have the research, I have the stats to back it up, I have the knowledge behind what I'm doing to say, hey, I know more than you might think I know.
At the very beginning, when I started, I was questioned a lot more than I am now, at least by people in the business and by coaches and by players. Readers are a whole different story, I think. But once I did establish myself and people realized that I knew what I was talking about and that I asked good questions and that I was very professional on the job, that started to change and the respect level started to change. But I don't think it's an even playing field when you walk in.
But sometimes I think there is that, like, doubt sometimes with females in sports, like, oh, do you actually know what you're talking about? So I think you kind of have to prove from the beginning, like, hey, I'm here, I have a seat at the table, and that's because, I have a command of what I'm talking about.
We would get a lot of calls from readers, and they didn't want to talk to the woman editor. They wanted to talk to, people would always say, I need the man in charge. Some things like that would happen.
People are, like, there's so many different people out there, and there's so many different people that are going to have a lot of preconceived notions about, why maybe I have a job, or maybe another female has a job. But my thought process has always been, like, that's not on me, that's on them.
It's just kind of this, like, layer that you kind of just always have to deal with, that you have to work harder, you have to do more homework, you have to think about a lot of things that your male colleagues don't think about, just to be taken seriously.
I see the argument all the time of, oh, they never played football, but a lot of the broadcasters, a lot of the commentators, or a decent majority, have never played football. So what's putting them at more of an advantage than someone like me who never actually played football in high school, but was an athlete, played sports, did things like that. So I think you'll see a lot of females kind of more and more coming into the industry, and I think you'll see a lot more of them competing for these top spots.
I tend to get, women in this business, and, me included, we get the assumption that you don't know what you're talking about, because if you're talking about specifically football, because I've covered the NFL for 10 years now, and, you get that assumption right off the bat that, oh, you can't possibly know what you're talking about because you didn't play football. Where there's kind of this baseline assumption for my male colleagues, whether they're TV reporters, print reporters, radio guys, there's just this baseline assumption that they know what they're talking about because they're men. In the Elmira Pioneers, their locker room is also their clubhouse, and they all just kind of sit there before games. So not this past summer, but the summer before, my co-anchor was like, oh, I'll go in, and I was like, wait, I'm gonna come with you, and he goes, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, well, they're gonna, I don't care if they're, sitting there toweled, we have to do these interviews, let's go. And so I just walked in, and it's funny to see the reactions. Guys are gonna what are you doing in here? But at the same point, I'm like, okay, we're gonna interview you, and they're like, oh, okay, whatever.
I'm not going to name the team, but it's like a well-known team in Rochester. And it was post-game, and a security guard wasn't letting me in the locker room. And I was like, no, I'm here to do the job. I'm a reporter. Because he let in everyone else, and he's like, no, you can't go in. I'm like, what? First of all, I don't like going into a locker room. It's not like I want to be in there, but that's where you have the post-game press conferences for the most part, so you gotta go in. So he's like, no, you can't go in. I'm like, why? He's like, well, they're changing right now. I was like, I need to go in. They're talking right now as well. So there was some backlash, and then I was like, I just went by him and was like, I'll explain this later.
Milwaukee, I was definitely the only female. That's the place where my credential got checked a lot. And it wasn't really the coaches or players. They travel around and they see the different markets, but people at that arena were maybe a little surprised, to see a woman there. And it was clear to me that maybe they haven't had one covering the NBA there in quite some time, if at all.
Each team has different rules. If, let's say you're the reporter who covers the Broncos for DenverBroncos.com, sometimes those reporters are not allowed to go into the locker room. So that's discriminatory if you are hiring women, but they're not letting them in there. They can't do their jobs the same way. If you're an intern who's working for one of these team sites, but you're not allowed to go in the locker room as a woman, but your male colleagues are, that is not an equal employment.
But I find a lot of times that's and the athletes are the least of my problems. I've had more problems with coaches and colleagues than I have with athletes in my career.
Sometimes people assume they kind of write you off and I'm like, ugh, whatever, she's not going to know what to ask. Which in that case, you know, any reporter should be well versed on what they're talking about and the context of every situation. So in that case, I don't really worry about it because I'm like, all right, you might initially be a little annoyed by me asking a question, but you'll figure out that, you know, I do know what I'm talking about.
You know, my male sports writing peers, my NFL peers, you know, they'll get called idiots online a lot. You know, oh, you're so dumb, you know what you're talking about, or, you know, that kind of stuff. They're never called the C word or threatened with violence and stuff like that women in this business unfortunately have to put up with.
And it even makes me happy to see women with opportunities in small markets, not just the national media. Like, that makes me really proud to see small cities be represented by, you know, female sports reporters and people, you know, and just anyone, just like seeing that and seeing the fact that there are these opportunities.
And I think there's going to be a stigma that kind of dissipates a little bit. Everyone's going to, you know, start to realize, hey, you know, we're on an equal playing field.
We need to see more women in different roles where it's not just sideline reporting, and where it's not, if you are on a set at ESPN, let's say, or your local TV station, whatever it is, where you're not just the one asking the questions. You're not the one just deferring to the men who are there to ask them the questions, that you are the expert, that you can be the football expert or the basketball expert or, you know, the high school football show, whatever that case might be, that you're not the one who's there just kind of facilitating towards the other men.
I want to say I think you're going to see the sidelines, you know, changing. I love when I see, you know, a male reporter on the sideline because it isn't traditional. Everyone thinks, oh, the females are on the sidelines, that's their role. But I want to, you know, see more change and see more progression. And I think that will happen, you know, once this starts to move, because I've already kind of seen a lot of growth in it.
I think women have way more opportunities now than ever. People want to hire women. Diversity is certainly on the forefront more than it used to be everywhere. That doesn't just go for women, it goes for minorities as well. And I think the opportunities are there more than they used to be.
But I think everybody, you know, it has changed a little bit to the point where a lot of people, at least in the small markets, are, you know, getting really excited for, you know, females to be in this business and to, you know, be working in this industry and wanting to, you know, do more.
Because I don't think, like, when I moved to Elmira, I was the first female sports reporter in 30 years. And then 2 people later is Jenna Harner, who is also obviously another female. Like, that makes me really excited for what the future holds. And I think that means that, you know, they're just continue to integrate women into the field, and I think that's a great thing.
And it's crazy just to see, you know, how many of us there really are, and it's exciting to say, you know, hey, she's moving up here, she's going to Fox Sports, she's moving up to NBC, kind of type of thing.
So now that we've taken a look at women in sports journalism today, it's time to take a closer look at some of the issues that they might face when covering sports, such as gaining access to a locker room and doing interviews with professional athletes in those locker rooms. So it's time to fasten your seatbelts, put on your FDA-approved non-flammable pajamas, because it's time for some hot takes in the X and O Zone. Welcome into the X and O Zone, where we break down the ins and outs of journalism ethics. This is your one-stop shop for journalism ethics. So hold on to your seats, because we are going for a ride. We are here with Samantha Cavalli, breaking down this wonderful puzzle box in the X and O Zone. We are dealing with women. We are dealing with sports journalism. We are dealing with locker rooms. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I've got 12 cups of coffee and I'm ready to talk about some journalism ethics.
So let's get started.
Our empirical definition. You are an editor of a lovely magazine or a lovely newspaper or a lovely TV station. You've got to decide, it's the big game. It's the Raiders. It's the Seahawks. It's the Super Bowl. The Raiders just won the Super Bowl. Who are you setting into that locker room? That is your decision. Break down this empirical definition for me.
So definitely I want to think about who I want to bring in there, especially women. What woman do I want to bring in there?
Do you want to bring a woman in there?
I would love to, because that's what you're aspiring to be. I want to be, I want to make sure that there's somebody in there, recording the game for me. I want to make sure I put the right person in there, and that's my empirical definition.
All right, you are making this decision. It's a controversial decision. Some people don't want women in the locker room. What are your values?
My number one, some truth.
You want the truth to get out there.
I absolutely want the truth to get out there, no matter if you're a man, you're a woman, whatever you are. truth is the #1 thing on my mind.
Always got to be in mind when you're in journalism. We want truth.
Yes.
What's up next?
Next, we're gonna the big M, some money.
You gotta make some money. You know, you can't tell the truth if you got no one to tell it to.
Exactly. Without that money, I mean, where are you gonna? What are you
Can't
gonna
pay
do?
your reporters.
Exactly. You can't pay. You can't do much else.
Anything else you want to put in this value column?
Oh, yes. The educate.
You gotta educate the public. The Oakland Raiders just beat the Seahawks 49-0. Derek Carr, he just threw 5 touchdown passes. Marshawn Lynch, he just threw Skittles on the field like no tomorrow. You gotta make sure people are telling the truth, and you gotta make sure that the public is getting educated.
Absolutely. No matter who it is, you got to make sure that they're very heavily educated on the subject, no matter who it is.
All right, we've got our values. We got the things we're trying to accomplish. Now we gotta figure out how to do it. What is our ethical principle? Utilitarianism, if you can't see behind your head, we got utilitarianism. Nobody knows how to spell it. Everybody knows what it means. What does it mean?
We want to make people happy. We want to make the public happy with what we're going to be presenting to them, and that's exactly what utilitarianism means. We want to make the public happy.
All right, how are we gonna make the public happy?
Writing good stuff. We want to make sure we get the news right.
We gotta get the best person there for the job.
Exactly. We got to get the best person there.
Now, other people, you got to think about it. The athletes, you know, that some athletes, they might not be comfortable with the women coming into the locker room. You know, it's their domain there. What do you say to that?
Women got to do their job.
Damn right.
Really, you're not going to let them in there because they can't. We got to do our job. That's what we're paid for. If we can't do that, we're not going to get our money. We're not going to get the
You're not
story
going to get that
we want.
money. You're not going to get that truth. You're not going to get that educating.
Nobody's going to be educated.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
We got fake news if we can't get women in the locker room. All right, we've got our ethical principles. We've got our values. We're figuring out a problem to solve here in the X and O zone. We got one more stop left. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Oh, you better be ready because we are choosing our loyalties. Who are you loyal to?
First, foremost, the people that you work with, your colleagues.
Very important in this scenario. You're the editor-in-chief. You've got all of your reporters to worry about. You got to send one of them, maybe more, into the locker room. How do you make sure that you're loyal to your colleagues?
Well, I got to make sure first off, I want to make sure I'm sending in the people that I want to send in.
You got to get the best person for the job.
Exactly. I mean, if the right person for the right job, but depending on how loyal each colleague is to each other, maybe they can give them advice. They can, help them out a little
Very
bit.
true, very true.
Colleagues are like your second family.
Speaking of another family of yours, give me another loyalty.
Pretty big one. The public.
Your public, they're paying your bills. They're making your family warm late at night.
Exactly. Without the public, you don't have a newspaper. You don't have a TV source. You don't have a magazine.
And isn't that the real reason why you're doing this? Is to inform the public.
And to educate the public and tell the truth.
Boom, we're bringing it back to stage 2. We're bringing it back in the X and O zone. Here we go, we're bringing it forward a little bit.
Oh.
Another loyalty, possibly.
Okay.
The team you're covering, the athletes you're covering, you're sending someone into the locker room. Don't you gotta make sure that they're all right with this?
In a sense, yes, but at the same time, you don't work for the athlete.
You don't?
You don't work for the organization.
You don't?
You work for a different news outlet that is covering that team.
Mhm.
If they got a problem with it, talk to the news outlet. That's my guess.
And you gotta get the best person for the job. You've gotta educate the public. And I guess if you're, worrying about the team, I don't think you can do that the best you can.
I don't think either.
All right, we have got this problem down locked. We are out of the X and O zone. We will be right back after this commercial break with one last goodbye. We'll see you later.
High life!
Welcome back to Media Watch. Well, that's all the show we have for you tonight. I hope you have a greater appreciation for women in sports journalism and some of the issues that they face doing their job today. I'm AJ Feldman for Zoe Cameron, for Katie Eyrig and Samantha Cavalli, for Mead Loop and the late great Al Davis. Thank you for watching. Have a great night and go Bills.